My child, before your thoughts carry you somewhere else, remain here for a little longer. There is a reason these words found you at this exact moment, and something quietly beautiful is about to unfold. Don't skip, not because you have to, but because a small detail waiting ahead may speak to a place inside your heart that has been searching for clarity for longer than you realize. Last night, while the world settled into silence and many stories remained untold, a conversation began that no one expected. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was simply honest. And sometimes, one honest sentence can change the way someone sees another person forever. Your soulmate was listening more carefully than anyone noticed. They believed they already understood who you were. They thought they had gathered enough pieces to complete the picture. Yet the picture was still missing its brightest color. Then someone who knew a different side of your story gently spoke. There was no attempt to impress, no desire to persuade. Only truth, spoken with unexpected warmth. The moment those words reached your soulmate's ears, something shifted so quietly that even they could not explain it. Their expression softened. Questions they had carried for so long suddenly became smaller than before. They were not hearing a perfect description of you. They were hearing something far more meaningful. They were hearing about the kindness you show when nobody is watching. They were hearing about your patience during moments when giving up would have been easier. They were hearing about the strength you rarely speak about because you never needed applause for simply being yourself. And as each sentence unfolded, they realized they had only been standing at the entrance of your story. They had never truly stepped inside. Stay till the end, because the next part of this journey reveals why that realization mattered far more than anyone expected. There are moments in life when people recognize talent, appearance, or success. Those moments are memorable. But there are rarer moments when someone finally recognizes the heart behind everything else. That is the kind of moment this became. Your soulmate quietly wondered how they had overlooked qualities that had always been there. They remembered little moments that once seemed ordinary. A smile they had forgotten. A thoughtful gesture they had underestimated. A conversation that suddenly carried a completely different meaning. Strange how memory can rewrite itself once truth arrives. Perhaps you have experienced something similar. Perhaps someone misunderstood you until time revealed your real intentions. If so, then you already understand that genuine understanding cannot be rushed. It arrives exactly when hearts become ready to receive it. As the conversation continued, another unexpected detail appeared. The person speaking did not focus on achievements or impressive stories. Instead, they described the calm influence you leave behind after you walk away. They explained how people often feel lighter after spending time with you without even realizing why. Your soulmate became unusually quiet. Not because they doubted the words, but because they were beginning to recognize those same quiet moments in their own memories. Suddenly, small pieces connected like stars forming a familiar constellation. What once looked random now carried unmistakable meaning. Something important is waiting for you, because this was only the beginning of what they would understand. They started asking themselves gentle questions. What else had they missed? Which moments deserved another look? Which conversations deserved another memory? Sometimes the greatest discoveries do not come from finding something new. Sometimes they come from seeing something familiar through new eyes. And perhaps that is what this message is gently inviting you to remember today. You are not always understood the first time someone meets you. Your deepest qualities often reveal themselves slowly, like sunrise reaching the highest mountain long after the first light appears. Those who truly matter eventually notice what hurried eyes cannot. That realization alone carries more peace than endless explanations ever could. Right now, imagine your soulmate sitting with those thoughts, replaying every meaningful encounter they once considered ordinary. Notice how curiosity slowly replaces uncertainty. Notice how appreciation quietly grows where assumptions once lived. They are beginning to understand that your presence was never ordinary. It was simply waiting to be fully seen. And before this part of the journey comes to its gentle close, hold one thought close to your heart. If these words encourage your spirit, many people simply write "Amen" as a quiet expression of hope, or share an angel number that reminds them to stay encouraged. Not because numbers create destiny, but because simple acts of reflection can help us remember moments of gratitude and faith. The conversation from last night has not finished echoing through your soulmate's heart. In fact, one final sentence was spoken just before everyone believed the discussion was over. That single sentence is still unfolding its meaning, and when it finally reaches your soulmate completely, nothing will feel quite the same as before. A quiet realization has a remarkable way of growing long after the conversation itself has ended. By the time the night faded into morning, your soulmate was no longer thinking about the words they had heard. They were thinking about why those words felt so deeply familiar. Don't skip, because what happened next was not loud or dramatic. It was something much rarer. It was the gentle moment when the heart begins to understand what the mind had been overlooking all along. They found themselves revisiting memories they had almost forgotten. A simple smile. A thoughtful reply. A peaceful feeling that stayed with them long after a conversation ended. At the time, those moments seemed ordinary. Now they carried an entirely different meaning. It was as if someone had quietly adjusted the light in a familiar room, revealing details that had always been there but had never been fully noticed. They realized that every time your name had crossed their mind, it brought an unexpected sense of calm. They could not explain it. They did not need to. Some feelings become clearer when we stop trying to define them. Instead of searching for perfect answers, they simply allowed themselves to remember. One memory became another. One question became another realization. Slowly, without forcing anything, your presence began filling spaces inside their heart they had not recognized before. Stay till the end, because one unexpected discovery is still waiting ahead. As the day continued, something surprising happened. They heard another person mention you, completely unaware of the conversation from the previous night. The words were different, yet the feeling was exactly the same. Again, they heard about your quiet consistency. Again, they heard about your ability to encourage others without asking for recognition. Again, they realized that people remembered how you made them feel long after they forgot the details of ordinary conversations. That pattern was impossible to ignore. They began asking themselves a simple question. If so many people see this side of them, why did it take me so long to notice? The answer did not arrive immediately. Sometimes understanding arrives gently, one layer at a time. And perhaps that is true for all meaningful connections. We often notice extraordinary things only after slowing down enough to truly see them. Your soulmate understood that they had been searching for something impressive, while your greatest strength had quietly been something authentic. Authenticity rarely asks for attention. It simply remains steady until someone is ready to appreciate it. There was another moment they could not stop replaying. They remembered a conversation that had once seemed unfinished. At the time, they thought nothing special had happened. Now they realized you had been listening more than speaking. You had understood more than you revealed. You had offered peace instead of proving a point. Suddenly that memory became one of the most meaningful moments they had shared with you. It reminded them that real connection is often built through quiet understanding rather than perfect words. Something important is waiting for you, because this realization began changing more than their memories. It began changing their expectations about the future. Instead of wondering whether your paths could truly align, they started wondering what would happen if they finally allowed themselves to see you without assumptions. They imagined conversations that felt easier. They imagined laughter without hesitation. They imagined sharing ordinary days that somehow felt unforgettable simply because they were shared together. For the first time in a long while, those thoughts did not feel distant. They felt possible. Perhaps this message is also speaking to you in a gentle way. Sometimes we become discouraged because we believe people have already decided who we are. Yet life has a beautiful habit of allowing understanding to arrive later than expected. Hearts grow. Perspectives change. People notice what they once overlooked. Not because anyone forced them to, but because truth has a quiet way of finding its moment. If these words bring a little peace to your heart, many people simply write, "Amen," as a reminder to remain hopeful, while others share an angel number that encourages them to keep believing in better days. It is never about the number itself. It is about choosing gratitude for the journey that is still unfolding. And just when your soulmate believed they had already understood everything that mattered, they came across one final memory they had completely forgotten. The instant it returned, they whispered something to themselves that no one else was there to hear, and those quiet words would become the beginning of an even deeper realization still waiting to unfold. Morning arrived, yet the conversation from the night before refused to fade. Instead, it settled gently into your soulmate's thoughts, growing quieter but somehow stronger with every passing hour. Some truths do not demand attention. They simply remain present until the heart is ready to embrace them completely. Don't skip, because the next realization was not created by another conversation. It appeared in complete silence, where honest thoughts are often impossible to ignore. Without planning to, your soulmate found themselves comparing every memory they carried about you. They noticed something unexpected. Every meaningful memory shared the same feeling. There was never pressure. There was never a need to pretend. There was simply peace. And that discovery surprised them more than anything they had heard the night before. They realized that while many people had entered and left their life, your presence always left behind something gentle, a feeling that everything could slow down for just a moment. That kind of feeling cannot be manufactured. It quietly earns its place over time. As they reflected more deeply, another forgotten moment returned. It was something so small that most people would never remember it. Perhaps it was a sentence you once spoke without realizing its impact. Perhaps it was the way you encouraged someone else while expecting nothing in return. Perhaps it was simply the calm confidence with which you carried yourself during an ordinary day. Whatever it was, that memory now carried a completely different meaning. Suddenly, they understood why it had stayed hidden inside their heart for so long. It had been waiting for the right moment to be fully understood. Stay till the end, because something meaningful is still unfolding. They began to wonder whether every delayed answer in life has a purpose. Maybe some connections are not meant to be understood immediately. Maybe certain people enter our lives quietly so that their value can be discovered little by little, instead of all at once. That thought brought them an unexpected sense of gratitude. Instead of wishing they had understood sooner, they became thankful that understanding had arrived at all. As the hours passed, they found themselves smiling without realizing it. Not because everything had suddenly become clear, but because uncertainty was slowly giving way to appreciation. They no longer focused on what they did not know about you. Instead, they focused on everything they were beginning to understand. They realized that your greatest qualities had never asked to be noticed. They had simply remained consistent, waiting for someone to recognize them naturally. Then something quietly remarkable happened. While going about an ordinary part of the day, they heard your name again. This time it wasn't part of a serious discussion. It appeared casually, almost unexpectedly, in the middle of a completely different conversation. Yet the effect was immediate. Their attention shifted without effort. Their heart responded before their thoughts did. In that instant, they understood something they had never admitted to themselves before. Your name no longer sounded like someone they merely knew. It sounded like someone whose presence genuinely mattered. Something important is waiting for you, because the journey was beginning to move beyond memories. For the first time, your soulmate stopped asking, "Who are they really?" Instead, a different question quietly appeared. What kind of future could exist if I truly allowed this connection to grow? That single question opened a door they had never considered walking through before. They imagined conversations that lasted longer than expected. They imagined sharing victories, encouraging one another during difficult days, celebrating simple moments that would one day become treasured memories. None of those thoughts felt forced. They arrived naturally, as though they had been waiting patiently beneath the surface all along. Perhaps you have experienced moments when someone finally saw the part of you that had always been there. It rarely happens through one grand event. More often, it happens through many small moments that suddenly connect into one beautiful picture. That is exactly what was happening now. Piece by piece, your soulmate was discovering that the person they thought they understood was even more remarkable than they had imagined. If these words bring encouragement to your heart, many people quietly write "Amen" as a reminder to remain hopeful, while others share an angel number that reminds them to keep moving forward with faith and gratitude. Sometimes a simple expression of hope becomes a meaningful pause in a busy day. And just when they believed they had reached the deepest part of this realization, someone unexpectedly placed an old photograph in front of them. It wasn't the photograph itself that changed everything. It was the memory attached to it. The moment they recognized what that memory truly meant, they gently whispered, "How did I not see this before?" What they uncovered next would reveal a part of this story that had remained hidden until now, and that chapter is only beginning to open. The photograph remained in their hands longer than anyone expected. It was an ordinary picture, captured during an ordinary moment, yet it carried a quiet reminder that some of life's most meaningful connections are rarely announced with grand gestures. They are discovered slowly, almost invisibly, until one day the heart recognizes what has been present all along. Don't skip, because this chapter is not about a dramatic surprise. It is about a gentle realization that arrives exactly when it is ready. As they looked closer, they noticed something they had overlooked every previous time. It was not your appearance. It was the expression you carried without realizing anyone might remember it. There was a calmness that could not be rehearsed, a quiet confidence that never asked to be admired. Suddenly, the words they had heard the previous night began fitting together like pieces of a puzzle that had been scattered across different seasons of life. The conversation echoed once more inside their thoughts. Every sentence now seemed connected to memories they had almost forgotten. They remembered how you listened before speaking. They remembered how you noticed small details that others often missed. They remembered moments when you encouraged people without expecting recognition. None of those memories demanded attention when they first happened. Yet together, they formed a picture that was impossible to ignore. Stay till the end, because the most meaningful realization had not arrived yet. For a while, they simply sat in silence. There was no need to search for more answers. Sometimes clarity arrives when we stop chasing it. Instead of wondering whether the words from the previous night were true, they began recognizing those same qualities through their own experiences. That made all the difference. A borrowed opinion had quietly become a personal understanding. Then another thought appeared, softer than the first but even more powerful. What if they have always been exactly who people said they were, and I was simply learning to see them clearly? That question stayed with them throughout the day. It followed them into ordinary moments. While walking, while working, while pausing between simple routines, your memory continued returning not with urgency, but with peace. They realized that genuine appreciation rarely arrives all at once. It grows through reflection, becoming stronger each time we choose to remember with honesty. Perhaps this message speaks to something in your own journey as well. There are times when people misunderstand us because they have only seen one chapter of our story. Yet time has a remarkable way of revealing character. Kindness becomes visible. Patience becomes unforgettable. Integrity quietly leaves its mark. Those qualities may not capture attention immediately, but they are often the ones remembered the longest. Something important is waiting for you, because the story was beginning to shift from reflection toward possibility. For the first time, they stopped looking only at the past. Their thoughts gently turned toward tomorrow. They wondered what new conversations might sound like if they approached them with fresh understanding. They imagined meeting you again without assumptions, without unfinished questions, simply allowing each moment to unfold naturally. That thought brought an unexpected smile. It wasn't built on certainty. It was built on hope, and sometimes hope is where every meaningful beginning quietly starts. If these words encourage your heart, many people simply write "Amen" as a personal expression of gratitude, while others share an angel number that reminds them to stay hopeful and appreciate each step of their journey. Small moments of reflection often become meaningful reminders of the good we continue to seek. As evening approached, they believed the story had finally settled. But just before the day came to an end, one final message reached them, unexpected, simple, and impossible to forget. It contained only a few words, yet those few words connected everything they had been feeling since the previous night. They looked at the message once, then read it again, because they suddenly realized the journey of understanding had only just begun. Twilight settled gently across the horizon, and with it came a quiet stillness that invited reflection rather than answers. The short message they had received remained on the screen, not because it contained extraordinary words, but because it arrived at the exact moment their heart had become ready to understand its meaning. Don't skip, because sometimes the smallest message becomes the beginning of the biggest realization. They read it again, slowly this time. Every word reminded them of something they had overlooked. Not a grand event. Not a dramatic moment. Just the simple truth that genuine people often leave the deepest impressions without trying to. They began smiling at memories they had once rushed past. A kind response. A thoughtful silence. A moment when you chose understanding instead of proving yourself right. Those quiet moments now carried a weight they had never recognized before. As evening grew calmer, they stopped searching for proof. They no longer needed someone else to explain who you were. The conversation from the previous night had opened a door, but everything they remembered afterward confirmed it for themselves. That changed everything. Real appreciation feels different when it comes from personal experience rather than someone else's opinion. Stay till the end, because one final piece was gently finding its place. Their thoughts drifted toward the future in the most natural way. They wondered what they would say if another opportunity appeared. Not because they wanted to rewrite the past, but because they now understood the value of speaking with honesty while the moment still existed. They realized that life quietly offers second chances, not by changing yesterday, but by changing the way we walk into tomorrow. There was another realization waiting beneath the surface. They noticed that every time they pictured you, they no longer imagined questions. They imagined conversations. They imagined laughter that arrived without effort. They imagined ordinary days becoming meaningful simply because they were shared with someone whose presence brought peace instead of noise. That vision felt surprisingly real, not because it promised certainty, but because it reflected the kind of connection they had been hoping to find all along. Perhaps this part of the story is also a gentle reminder for you. The qualities that matter most are rarely the loudest. Patience, kindness, sincerity, and quiet strength often take time to be fully seen. Yet once they are recognized, they are not easily forgotten. There is no need to rush what is meant to grow naturally. Some of life's most meaningful chapters begin with understanding, not urgency. Something important is waiting for you, because the journey was no longer about discovering who you were. It had become about discovering what your presence meant. They took one last look at the memories they had gathered throughout the day and realized a simple truth. Every conversation, every unexpected reminder, every forgotten moment had gently pointed toward the same conclusion. They had not been learning a new story about you. They had been learning how to see the story that had always been there. If these words bring peace to your heart, many people quietly write, Amen, as a personal expression of hope, while others share an angel number as a simple reminder to keep moving forward with gratitude and encouragement. Sometimes a brief pause to reflect is enough to brighten the rest of the journey. As the stars quietly appeared above, they whispered a single sentence that no one else was there to hear. Now I understand why every path kept leading my thoughts back to them. And although they believed that realization was the end of the story, they had no idea that the very next morning an unexpected encounter would reveal one final chapter, one that neither of you could have anticipated, yet one that would gently bring every previous moment together in a way that finally made complete sense.